So now, what does all of this have to do with forgiving your parents? Well, I mean, to be quite honest, all of it has to do with forgiving your parents. What I'm trying to do right now is help you recognize that your parents are people too. And to be quite honest, I think some people kind of forget that.
It's like every morning I wake up and I fail. And I look around and everybody seems to be pulling up, but somehow I can't. No matter how hard I try. Somehow I'll never be enough.
You ain't enough. Yeah, you're much more than enough. Lovely to meet you.
And that, sure, maybe the disorderedness of a person can take over them. But I think it's also important to recognize that, yes, you know, that happens. But most of the time, parents don't intentionally set out to hurt their children. What a more accurate representation, or at least narrative of what that would be, is that sometimes people just let the distortedness take over. And that's what you see, the distortedness of a person. That's what you're really angry at. And then other times you just have to put yourself in a healthier perspective of, you know, honestly asking the question, was it really them? Or was it just, you know, some distorted version of them? Was it, you know, the environment that you grew up in? Or maybe it was more of a financial one where maybe one Christmas was different. Or maybe you're more so unhappy with their coping mechanisms or how they chose to handle their life. That's something that probably hits a lot closer home. The true understanding of forgiveness is empathy. And that knowing that, just like you know how you're watching this video and we're sharing a, you know, shared experience together. This is life. You are choosing to watch this because you want to better yourself, and you maybe even want to better the relationship that you have with your family. You know, and whether it be a, you know, scratch on your back, or maybe even like a ringing in your ear, or maybe it's, you know, just a honest analyzation of, you know, how close you are in your relationships. Like, do you allow people in, or do you push them away? Because, again, to some degree, you already know what I'm going to say. Your parents have felt that too, or maybe have at least encountered it. And in moments like that, you can choose to either address it or ignore it. So before you condemn them, ask yourself how honest you are with yourself and your actions. Know that the decisions that you are making in your life right now, again, to some degree, your parents had the same choices. What I want you to do right now is I want you to honestly ask yourself, how are you conducting yourself in your life? Do you believe or do you feel that you need healing? Or are you ignorant and think that you've already done all the work? Because that kind of thinking leads to distorted behavior. Do you do things that you know that you shouldn't do, but you do them anyway because you think that either A, that they're not really going to have consequences on other people, or that your actions don't affect other people, or are you just unwilling to change because you don't think you need to? How brave are you in your own life? Are you willing to leave that job in order to find better? Are you willing to leave certain relationships and friend groups because you know they just no longer serve you, but you're staying in them because you've known them for like a decade, and time means more than how someone makes you feel? Are you invested in yourself? Do you keep promises to yourself? Do you honor your commitments to yourself? Are you willing to work out? Are you willing to maintain a healthy lifestyle? And not just physical, but also the mental. Are you continuously searching and trying to better yourself and challenging your own beliefs? If you think something, are you willing to say to yourself, like, hey, whoa, slow down? Why do you think that? And are you willing to play devil's advocate with yourself in order to help you find a better balance? Or do you stay in that job because you think that you can't find any better? Or are you willing to stay in that job because it's money? Do you stay somewhere because it's comfortable? Do you stay somewhere because you're not willing to go outside your comfort zone? Do you stay somewhere because that's all you know and you're afraid to venture out? When you're with your kids, do you actually spend time with them, or do you shove tablets down their throat? Instead of trying to help them go to sleep, do you just shove like a sleep gummy? Or do you give them something in order to help them sleep? Are you willing to work with them through their issues? Because what parenting really is, and typically what most people are actually upset with, is that they feel that their parents have not prepared them for the real world. So before you condemn someone, first condemn yourself, because those kind of moments, they add up and they become bigger and more expansive than I think anyone really intends for it to be. But again, know that how you choose to live your life, your parents have decided their life also. I guess to tie it all in, recognize that your parents are people too, and recognize the moments that they were brave, and understand the moments on why they weren't. Because, to be quite honest, if you aren't even willing to face your own demons or even face your past, how can you condemn them for doing the exact same thing, especially when you aren't even willing to do it yourself? How can you condemn your parents for something that you aren't even willing to do? These kind of words may not apply to all situations, but it definitely applies to most. And that is who this video is addressed towards. Get to know your parents, understand their life, how they grew up, what happened to them. It doesn't mean you have to talk to them. I'm not saying that you have to talk, to your parents. But to some degree, you have an idea, right? Like, take into account, the time. You think that you didn't have a voice? Back then, they definitely didn't have a voice. Children and women were viewed as property. Believe it or not, with every new generation born, there are more and more freedoms that the previous generation didn't have. Recognize that. Things like that, like hate is easy. Grudges are easy. Believing that they are a terrible person and that you would never do that, or, that you would never understand them it's honestly, it's a cop-out. Because again, if you aren't even willing to do the things that you wish that they had done, take responsibility and the generational curse, because all it takes is one person just to break that cycle. And yes, you may be thinking, but why does it have to be me? Again, maybe they thought the same thing. After forgiveness, you don't have to talk to them. After forgiving someone, you don't physically need to be near them. Remember, forgiving them is for you. It's not for them. Though, if you can open your heart enough to do both, that can heal a lot of people. And yes, sometimes the family that you're born into is not the family that you're supposed to be with for the rest of your life. That's fine. Family is something that, it's forever changing. Family to some people are friends. Family to some people are their grandparents or their uncles and aunts and maybe even cousins. The term family is changing. Another thing to know is honestly just never stop evolving. I wholeheartedly believe that is the true key to having a happy life, or, just like being happy. The ability to grow, the ability to learn from your experiences and to extract wisdom from them. That is what leads to a healthy, human being. Everyone has different starting points, but it's not like a starting point like a line. Like you have a different starting point, I have a different starting point, and we're going to end up in different places, but you have your starting point for a reason. It's because you need to learn the lessons within your dynamics. You need to learn the lessons within your family, and you need to have an honest conversation with yourself about how receptive you are to those lessons and challenges and whatnot. Know that the situations that you are in are because you need to learn something from it. Our souls chose to be on this planet during this moment in history, and we chose our families, believe it or not, because our soul signed up to learn those lessons that come with it. I could probably do a whole different video on that one, maybe a different day. But unburden yourself, release yourself from the victim mentality, and stop blaming people, because blaming someone else for the unhappiness in your life is, to some degree, you can logic your way around it, but in reality, it is your life. You chose to watch this video because you wanted to learn how to heal. Now you're given the opportunity to actually change it and go outside your comfort zone and try and be happy. Unburden yourself from the grudges, because again, hate is easy, grudges are easy. You have the power. You know that. Now start believing in it and stop playing a victim to your circumstances, because that kind of mentality is going to lead you. And aren't you tired of that narrative? If you have to be or reach that place where you are sick of your own shit, then that's fine. You know, that's what you choose to do. But what I'm telling you is that you don't need to go there. You don't need to do that. You don't have to go there. You could actually just change now, unless you're already there then, you know, but learn from this. Take this in. And if you feel like this video is just a bunch of hullabaloo, then I have an honest question for you. Why do you feel that this lesson isn't for you? Why do you believe that this lesson isn't for you? Are you too ignorant to your circumstances? Honestly, ask yourself if you believe this lesson isn't for you. Because even if it's not a level of forgiving your parents, then maybe it's just a level of forgiveness. Do you truly forgive everyone that has ever hurt you? And if you do, great, then go create a YouTube channel, write a book, teach people. But if you don't, you know that you don't. This lesson could be applied to anyone. This lesson of forgiveness and empathy could be applied to anyone. But for this specific video, I'm choosing to make it about forgiveness of parents. I wrote down a couple other things just, to remind you what, forgiveness is not, or what forgiveness doesn't mean. Forgiving them doesn't mean that you need to be near them. It doesn't mean you need to be physically next to them. You can forgive from a distance, just like you can love from a distance. Forgiving them doesn't mean that they didn't do anything wrong, or doesn't mean that they didn't hurt you. Forgiving them is just accepting the decisions that they made and coming to terms with how and why they made it. And know that, maybe it wasn't even about you. That maybe it was just mostly about them. Because remember, people are really egotistical. And, as much as family loves us, people typically go into the, what about me thing. So most of the time, it probably wasn't even really about you. And I know that may hurt for some people. Another thing to note is that one day, maybe when you, or if you decide to have children, or maybe if you are one day on the other side of just forgiveness, you would hope and you would pray that the person across from you would show you sympathy, and that you wish that they would just understand where you were coming from. Think about that.